Hello everyone, John Weber here. I just got back from the Reuben Awards in San Diego a couple days ago, and so I thought it was time to share who won all of the awards this year. It was a fun ceremony, a very fun ceremony, and Tom Gamble, who does a comic called The Doozies, was the master of ceremonies, and let me tell you something. That man is hilarious. Tom Richmond, who's the president of the National Cartoonist Society, introduced him and gave the opening remarks and said, "Tom, whatever you do, please just try not to have it be, too long, because we are running a little bit behind." Tom Gamble then proceeded to break out into a show-stopping Broadway song and dance number, complete with backup dancers, entitled "It's Not Gonna Be a Long Show." It was hilarious. And then he proceeded to call up all of the former winners one by one so that they could open the envelopes and give out the awards to all this year's winners. The recipient of the Amateur Cartoonist Extraordinaire Award went to none other than Weird Al Yankovic, who, of course, Weird Al being Weird Al, was a very funny guy and very heartfelt too. He talked a lot about how he read Mad magazine growing up and how he learned just as much about comedy from Mad magazine as any other source in his life, which I thought was very cool to hear. The Golden Key Award is handed out to professional cartoonists who have been working on the craft for more than 50 years professionally, and not everyone gets to have this. Even Charles Schulz of Peanuts fame did not receive a Golden Key Award. He was working on Peanuts for about 49 and a half years before he retired the strip. And the recipient of the Golden Key Award went to Bunny Hoest Carpenter and John Reiner, the writer and cartoonist who work on The Lockhorns. And the Milton Caniff Lifetime Achievement Award went to Russ Heath, who has been working in this industry for a long time and is a very, very accomplished individual. And the Divisional Awards. Something that I guess I know myself but haven't made clear before is that the Reuben Awards do not just go to newspaper cartoonists. They also are handed out to people in the greeting card industry, editorial cartoons, TV animation, and feature film animation. So with that said, the winner of the Editorial Cartoon Award went to Mike Ramirez, and the winner of the Newspaper Illustration Award was Mil Prudencio Mia. For feature animation, I know that there are a lot of people out there who are going to be pleasantly surprised by this news. The winner of the Feature Animation Film Award went to Hayao Miyazaki, the director of The Wind Rises. I admit that I have actually not seen a Miyazaki film since 7th or 8th grade, sometime around there, so I should go pick up The Wind Rises at some point. For TV animation, the award went to Paul Rudish for his work on the Disney Channel's Mickey Mouse shorts. Newspaper panel comic, the award went to Dave Coverly of Speed Bump fame. I had a talk with Mr. Coverly the night before the awards, and he was very supportive of the show. He'd seen the videos covering last year's Reuben Awards and was, glad to see that I was in town and was very supportive of what I was doing. Magazine gag cartoons, the award went to Matt Diffie. Advertising and product illustration was won by Rich Powell. Mark Parisi took away the Greeting Cards Award. If Mark Parisi sounds familiar to you, that's because he also does the newspaper panel comic Off the Mark. And for comic books, the winner was Sergio Aragones for his work on the Sergio Aragones Funnies. Such a fun, rich name to say. It just rolls right off the tongue. It's got a lot of power behind it. I love it. The winner of the Graphic Novel Award was Andrew C. Robinson for his work on the graphic novel The Fifth Beatle, which is one that now I have to definitely make sure I go out and pick up at some point. The winner of the Magazine Illustration Award went to Dave Wammond, and there are actually two divisions for webcomics. There's online long-form comics and online short-form comics. So there were two winners. The winner of the online long-form comic went to Jeff Smith for his work on Tukey Save the Humans. If Jeff Smith is a familiar name to you, that's because he also did the very, very popular and very, very well-made graphic novel series Bone. And the winner of the online short-form comic was Ryan Paglow for his work on the comic Bunny, which a couple of you have wanted me to take a look at, and it is on my to-do list. It reminds me very much of Leo in a sense, where Leo takes horror tropes and turns them into comedy. Bunny does the exact opposite. It has funny things happen in a very dark, sort of sad, black comedy sort of way. It is funny, but sad. And the winner of the Newspaper Comic Strip Divisional Award went to Isabella Bannerman for her work on Six Chicks, which I'm glad to see, because hopefully this will mean a publicity boost for Six Chicks, and all of the women involved can start to get their name out there even more than they have been. It's a sign, I think, that the Six Chicks experiment is working out, and it can only mean good things, I hope. And last, but certainly not least, the winner of the Reuben Award for the Outstanding Cartoonist of the Year went to Wiley Miller of Non Sequitur, which I think is a good choice. Non Sequitur has a whole lot of detailed artwork, the writing is very intelligent, and it's been a very successful satirical comic. Wiley Miller shared a story when he got up, shared several stories about how readers were sometimes would read the strip so closely that some people would actually take out magnifying glasses and look in the margins where he had been sketching and hashing out shading and details, and would write into complaint because they swear they saw dirty words in the margins, which is of course false, but I find hilarious that people are taking it so seriously and are looking so much into this comic for something that's not there. Hilarious. I just find it funny that people are trying so hard to look for something that's not there just so they can get upset over it. Wiley Miller, congratulations on your Reuben Award, your first Cartoonist of the Year award, and congratulations, of course, to all of the other divisional award winners and award recipients. I should also mention that the J. Kennedy Memorial Scholarship was awarded, as it is every year. This year's recipient of the scholarship was Miss Renee Fondo. Congratulations to her. They showed some of her work online. I'll try and find some as well to show you, and I really like her style. So hopefully she continues and will bring us great things in the future. I also just want to kind of go over what happened a lot over the weekend, because I had a fantastic weekend with all of the cartoonists who were there and all the people who work at the syndicates in the major offices at King Features and Andrews McMeel and Creator Syndicate. I got down there a little early on Thursday actually to help package up the goodie bags. Everyone who attended received a goodie bag. I did as well. And one of the first people I met was actually Greg Evans and his daughter Karen, the creators of Luann. And they told me how much they had enjoyed the episode and how much they enjoyed what the show was doing, which seemed to be the consistent theme of everyone I talked to. Said, this is a really good idea, I really like it. Which, on the one hand, not on the one hand, but it's amazing that I'm receiving such support from the industry that I'm talking about. These are people who very much, seek out new things to continually increase their knowledge on what they're doing. And I had a number of people I've never even mentioned before on the show, to be honest. Bill Hines, who does Tank McNamara, told me, I've actually seen a number of episodes of your show. I've had them on in the background while I'm working on my comic. And to my knowledge, it's not that I haven't read Tank, it's not that I dislike Tank, it's just that he hasn't come up on the show before, and I was immensely surprised and happy to hear that he was enjoying it. Brendan Burfer, who is the editor-in-chief over at King Features Syndicate, I was introduced to him by Terry Liebenson and her husband Mike. They actually brought me up and introduced me, and Brendan almost immediately said, "Oh, right, yeah, no, you're the guy who does the things on YouTube, the comic strip critic, right? Yo, we love your stuff in the office. We've been watching it for months, and the guys in the marketing department are going to be really, really jealous when I tell them I got to meet you." So I learned a lot this weekend from everyone in the industry. From all the people I met. Mark Tutuli was there with his family, and they told me how much they enjoyed the show, not just because I predicted he was going to win, but just because they enjoy that I'm talking about this medium. And that more than anything, I guess that's what I want to try and do, is get people to talk about and read comic strips, because it's free, guys. You can go to Go Comics right now. You can make a profile page and put together your own comic section. You can do the exact same thing over at King Features. If I'm just talking about the show and telling you about good comics that you're not at least checking out and giving a fair shake, then I want you to do that. People get so worked up about other forms of media, about comic books and controversies going on over at DC and Marvel. And I don't know, many of you, I'm sure, buy and read those comics, but it wouldn't surprise me to learn that many of you don't. I don't. I can't afford it. But this is something that everyone, if you're watching this, you can partake in. You can enjoy every single day. That's what these people, that's what all these cartoonists want, is they want people to read and to talk about comics. I had actually a very good conversation with John Reiner, who's the artist for the Lockhorns, and he said, right, I saw your video actually on the Lockhorns when it came out last year. And for a moment, I was fairly nervous because when I had done my initial review of the Lockhorns, I admitted that I was not a fan of it, that I didn't enjoy it. And he said, that's fine. I liked your review because you were honest. And I asked him, he said, you aren't upset by that? And he goes, we're artists. We grew up all the time receiving criticism from friends, teachers, parents, college professors, people at the syndicate when we were trying to get syndicated. Be honest, we love to hear feedback. So Patty Hart and Mason Mastroianni of BC said the same thing. In fact, they want me to take a look at Dogs of Sea Kennel, which is now on my to-do list when I get around to Canine Month at the end of the year. I got to meet Johnny Glynn, who's the president of Universal Euclid, the syndicate that gave us Calvin and Hobbes, Doonesbury, Dilber, Peanuts, Non Sequitur, Leo, Heart of the City, Heavenly Nostrils, and many, many, many others. He told me that he had enjoyed my work on the show. I have a whole list of people I could just go through and just talk about. People I met over the weekend who were incredibly supportive of the show I'm doing, and I want to do my best to support this industry as well. Like I said, Mark Tutuli, of course, he actually gave me a giant bear hug. The moment he saw me, he dropped what he was carrying and ran up and just threw his arms around me, which is probably going to be the moment from this weekend that I'm going to remember. The whole weekend was great, but if I had to choose a moment of what happened out in San Diego, that's the moment I'm going to remember. Kathy Geiswhite, who does the comic strip Kathy, was there, and sadly I did not hear an ack from her. I was hoping to get an ack, but she was very intelligent, very soft-spoken, very wonderful one. Maria Scriven, who does a comic called Half Full, a panel comic which I haven't covered yet, but it's very clever. I enjoy seeing it. David Yonce, who is one of the managing editors over at Creator Syndicate. Creators publishes BC, Ask Shag, Diamond DeLille, among many others. Sandra Bell Lundy, who does Between Friends, was there. She had the biggest, warmest, cheeriest smile on her face the whole weekend. She was a ton of fun to see. And like I said, Between Friends is a comic that you should check out. Especially if you're in his target demographic of women in their mid-40s or so. I think it resonates very well with that target demographic. She had a lot of interesting stories at her seminar about things she had learned during her 20 years of syndication at King Features. It was immensely educational, very entertaining. Greg and Karen Evans, like I said, of Luann were there. They had plans coming up, they said, for the titular character, as well as Brad and Tony. I'm not going to share here. Eddie Pittman runs a webcomic called Red's Planet, which I just started reading after I met him. I sat next to him during the actual Reuben Awards ceremony. Very, very jovial fellow. And Red's Planet has some amazing artwork. Go check it out if you haven't seen it. Tom Gamble, like I said, he runs a comic called The Doozies and is the master of ceremonies. And he put together a lot of stuff that really had everyone laughing and laughing and laughing. He was great, and next year's MC has a tough act to follow. Best of luck to them. Brian Bassett, who does Red and Rover, I actually got to sit next to him for an extended period of time on the USS Midway. It's a U.S. aircraft carrier, and on Sunday all the cartoonists and myself got on a bus, and we went up to the Midway, and there were tables set up where we all got together for a meet and greet, and we got to meet fans of the comics and get some artwork and some sketches done. And I got to sit next to Brian Bassett for a little while and watch the man work, and he can sketch out a Red and Rover drawing with amazing speed. It was fascinating to watch. Dave Coverly, who does Speed Bump, like I said. Dan Perara, who does Bizarro, who, if you've never actually seen him, has a wonderfully... He is a character all in his own right. He always wears a trilby hat, horn-rimmed glasses, a vest, a sport coat, and he waxes his mustache into points on his mustache and his goatee. You can pick him out from a crowd a mile away. He's a great guy, wonderful. He's a character, like I said, all by himself. He's a character, if that makes sense. Ryan Pagolo, who does Bunny, I met there. And it's funny, you think that someone with such a dark outlook on life would, be someone like quiet, somewhat reserved. No, he was very bright and upbeat and energetic. So was Mark Tutuli. I guess that's a theme. These next three people are actually not cartoonists, but they are support people in the industry. Tom Heintes runs a magazine called Hogan's Alley, and he was very glad to see me. He'd seen my work before as well, and I follow Hogan's Alley on Twitter. You might have seen me talk about them, because every day he has a on this day in comics fact. On this day in comics, Snoopy's doghouse first appeared. On this day in comics, we first met Susie Durkins. On this day in comics, the Adam West Batman TV show first debuted. Things like that all the time, which is all really kind of interesting to see that there's always something that happened in history. And he's got stuff planned out for the next couple of months. He's a very smart man, very, very passionate about the entire medium. It was great to talk to him, and Alan Gardner, who runs a blog called The Daily Cartoonist, where a lot of people get updates on what's going on in the industry from. And the thing about him that I really like about The Daily Cartoonist is that it focuses very much on what's happening in the industry and not just with comic-based movies, for example. There are a number of sites out there such as Comic Book Resources and Comics Alliance, which I do enjoy, but they focus not just on the comics but also on other comic-based things like Batman video games are based on a comic strip or comic book, but those are video games. So we'll talk about Avengers, which is a great movie. Love the Avengers, but that's a movie. Alan Gardner tends to focus very much on the print side of things, which I like because it cuts out a whole lot of unnecessary clutter when I'm doing research. And Tom Racine of Tall Tale Radio was also there, and he recognized me just about on sight, which was immensely satisfying because I love Tall Tale Radio. Every episode he interviews a cartoonist on a number of subjects, and it's always very entertaining to listen to these guys, and also very educational. I've learned some things from Tall Tale Radio that I couldn't have found anywhere else. He's had on Known for Beauty, Dana Simpson, Mark Tutuli, Stephen Pastis, I believe Wiley Miller once or twice. Lots and lots of episodes. If you haven't heard him yet, he's actually on a bit of a break right now, which means that you can go back and you can start listening to all the past episodes before he starts catching up again, which is good news for you. Tom Richmond, who is the president of the National Cartoonist Society and one of the head artists at Mad Magazine, was also there. I got to talk with him, and it's a good feeling, I admit, to know that the president of the NCS supports your work. And his artwork's always been very detailed and stylized, and very Mad Magazine, which makes sense, seeing as how he's the head honcho. But no, he had helped to put the whole event together along with Phil Peister, who runs the NCS offices, and they did a spectacular job this year. It was just a great weekend. Lynn Johnston, who does For Better or For Worse, was there, and I know that a number of my viewers up there have wanted me to do a For Better or For Worse episode for a long time now, and that episode is coming in a couple of months, if not sooner. So For Better or For Worse has not eluded me. It is on my to-do list. I assure you, you'll be getting that episode. And Isabella Bannerman was there, and so was Benita Epstein, who runs I believe, the Friday edition of Six Chicks. They were both there. I got to talk with them and tell them how much I enjoyed the Six Chicks experiment, and then was glad it's working out. Of course, all the Cartoonist of the Year nominees were there. Hilary Price, Wiley Miller, Stefan Pastis, and Mark Tutuli. Stefan Pastis, this one surprised me a little bit in a good way. He did recognize me, but not from the Punchline show. He didn't recognize me from this. He recognized me because I was at a meet and greet 2 years ago in Pittsburgh, and that's where he recognized me from. He's got an astounding memory, which was really good to see. And he actually admitted he hadn't heard of the show, but he would have to check it out because I did place pearls in one of my top 5 at 2012. So, Mr. Pastis, your memory's astounding. I am very impressed. Joe Wose, who runs the Toonseum out in Pittsburgh, was there, and I really enjoyed the Toonseum because it's a very fun, informal atmosphere, very casual. You can just sort of go in and enjoy things. If you're in the Pittsburgh area, I recommend you go check it out. And also, when you step in the front door, look up, and you'll see an anvil there being suspended by a rope. Very sort of Looney Tunes-esque sort of welcome, which I enjoy. One of the most famous cartoons to have existed, one of the most famous gags from that cartoon, and if you're not careful, you'll get hit with it as well. Not really. John McNeil was there, and Mr. McNeil is actually the founder and president of Andrews McNeil Universal, which, I won't lie, for a moment was a little intimidating to be talking to the president and founder of the whole thing, but he was very happy, very upbeat, very intelligent and insightful guy, and he was glad to hear that I was running the show. He said he would check it out. So Mr. McNeil, good to see you. Jason Chatfield actually flew out from Australia, the cartoonist behind Ginger Meggs, and if you've seen pictures of him online, his pictures carry a sense of, of youthful energy and joy, but even those pictures don't accurately capture just how much energy he brings to the table. He was all smiles and all energy, bouncing off the walls in the best way possible all weekend. He was just full of such enthusiasm and getting to see everyone, which I suppose makes sense. He doesn't get the chance to go out to conventions here in the United States all that often because, he lives in Australia. So when he gets one weekend to finally see all his friends in the industry, he makes the most of it. Rick Kirkman and Jerry Scott of Baby Blues were both there, and they recognized me from last year and said hi. We're glad to see that I was still continuing my work. Brian Crane, who does the comic Pickles, I got to sit next to him at the Sunday buffet. He had seen my episode on Pickles a year back during last year's Reuben Awards, was glad of the support. John and Ann Hambrock are both names that have been mentioned very briefly before. John Hambrock runs a comic called The Brilliant Mind of Edison Lee, and his wife Ann is in charge of organizing the Kenosha Festival of Cartooning up in Kenosha, Wisconsin, I believe, which if you're in that area in September, you should definitely go check it out because they've got a whole lot of really, really good speakers lined up, including Terry Liebenson and Lincoln Pierce of Big Nate and many others. Speaking of Terry Liebenson, she and her husband Mike were there. It was great to see them again. They had a fantastic time, and it was great to see them, and I want to thank Terry for introducing me to Brendan Burford. This whole industry is actually very supportive. There really isn't any. There's none. There's no political maneuvering. There's no backstabbing. There's no people vying to try and, throw in little insults or jabs or poke fun at other people. Well, they poke fun at each other, but all in a very good-natured, humorous sort of way. The day after the Reuben Awards, Jim Horwitz, who runs a webcomic called Watson, posted a comic online saying, "Congratulations to all the losers, welcome home," showing Stefan Pastis and Terry Liebenson because they didn't win the award, and Pastis and Liebenson both love the comic. This is an industry that I guess is very much willing to be a little self-deprecating and have some fun. And they take their craft seriously, but they're willing to cut loose and poke a little fun at themselves, which is very good to hear. This was a gentleman who I was really hoping to meet, and thankfully I did. R.C. Harvey is the self-styled comics historian, and he has a whole lot of products available for sale regarding the history and the inside work of the comics and cartooning medium, which I do plan on picking up at some point because I want to understand the medium a little more myself and get more and more involved with it in any possible way I can. David Yonts, who's the managing editor at Creators Syndicate, I got to talk to him and Patty Hart for an extended time, and they were both very supportive of the show I was doing, and they were the ones who told me, if you have something that you want to talk about on the show, then don't hold back. Whatever you want to say it, because we really do love the feedback in every sense of the word. Scott Hilbert, who does the Argyle Sweater, was there. He was glad to hear that I was a fan of his comic, and had voted for him on the show. I mentioned Mark Parisi earlier, who does Off the Mark, which is a good comic. I do enjoy Off the Mark very much. It was good to see Mark Parisi. Phil Peister, who runs the offices of the National Cartoonist Society down in Florida. And this was another one who I met this past weekend, and I hope to see her again. Jenny Robb, who is the curator at the Billy Ireland Museum of Cartooning down at Ohio State University, was there. And I really, really would like to go down to the Billy Ireland Museum at some point before the summer's out, while they still have their exhibits on Bill Thompson and on Bill Watterson and Richard Thompson, while they still have those exhibits up. I didn't get to go to the grand opening. I was working a freelance job that day, but that means that now when I do get to go down, I get to get a much more private showing, which I am all for. That pretty much wraps up everyone I saw during the weekend. It was a long list. It was absolutely astounding to hear from all these people that had, many of which, who I said had heard of the show before and really enjoyed it. Tom Racine was a huge fan. Mark Tutuli has been watching every episode with his family. They were there as well. And it was a fun weekend. I had a lot of fun, and I learned a lot about what I'm doing with the show from this point on. And the show's not going away, of course not. But the way I'm approaching it now is I'm just going to always try and see where the audience is for a comic. Something that I very much discovered I enjoyed in Between Friends and during my Zippy the Pinhead episode is a comic might not always appeal to me, but there's a lot of comics out there. I'm not going to be liking every last single one of them. But there's someone out there that every single comic does appeal to. So I'm going to try and see where that audience is from now on. So if I don't like a comic because of reasons XYZ, I'm going to do my absolute hardest to see, well, maybe these people who like XYZ would enjoy this more. And if you like XYZ, then you go check out that comic. I think the next episode that I have is going to be coming up in just a week or even less. So until next time, I'm your comic strip critic, and I had a wonderful, wonderful time at the Reuben Awards. Thanks, everyone.